Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. This one is recreating a floor plan and picture in The Sims. I think it's the same designer or architect who created the other one that I did recently. But this one's quite an interesting layout. It's a 2-bedroom, fairly spacious house. It's not very big, but it's definitely livable and it's definitely playable too. I quite like the way this one's laid out. But it's completely base game as per usual, and it should be completely usable. I did try and run a sim around it to check, but this is me trying to get it as close as possible without looking too stupid. So this house doesn't actually have very many windows, and the ones it does have are huge. So my first thoughts were, how am I going to do the narrow windows on what is the stairs? And I kind of had to decide, no, it's not possible. Forget about it, because there's just no way that they exist in the game, or at least not in the base game. There might be something similar in one of the packs, but I don't have access to anything other than the huge windows, and sizing down doesn't work because the glass is a set size. So other than that, most of the windows are the same. I tried matching it to the floor plan, but I quite like the way this house looks overall. It's not identical, because you can never do something completely identical, but it's close enough that I'm content that it looks like the picture, and the inside's functioning as well. So as you'll see, it's quite simple. It's pretty much just a box with some massive windows, but inside there's a open ceiling and balcony area, which I didn't realize was on the floor plan until it took a few minutes of studying to figure it out. But there is that interesting 2-story window which you can see from what is the hallway upstairs. So it's quite a fascinating layout, and I've not really done anything like this before in The Sims, using balconies on second floors. It's not something I usually do unless it's for a massive build, so I didn't really anticipate doing it in a house this size. But it looks quite fashionable and modern, so I'm not against the idea of using a technique like that in a different build. But this is just me trying to recreate an existing plan, so got to follow what it says. But as you see now, I'm trying to lay it out somewhat to the plan. I think this house is possibly slightly bigger than the actual design is, but there's no way to make it any smaller without losing function. So I kind of decided that the function was more important than a slightly changed look on the back. But as you watch along, you'll see that I change the way it looks a couple of times. But I also try and do things like built-in storage to make it look more lived in than just a box with some chairs and cabinets. But anyway, as you can see at the moment, I'm trying to figure out how I want it to look inside, because although there's the cool picture of the house and the floor plan, it doesn't really give you an idea of what it looks like on the inside. So I tried to keep it relatively neutral, and I do eventually go for a blue and wooden toned color scheme, under the idea that it probably looks a little nicer than having a bunch of warm tones and trying to go for something less modern. And typically if you find a house that looks quite modern, it's got cooler tones and colder colors, and I think it's just a typical design tip, because they make the space look bigger, and whereas a red sofa can be quite stark, something that's cool and calmer can fill the space in a little bit better without looking too crowded and cramped. I use this little nook. I'm quite pleased with how this looks, and I will be doing this again, as a little shoe rack and coat rack, and it does kind of look like a stacked shoe rack without being too complicated. It's not a very complicated thing to create, so if you've got a spare nook in the corner of a hallway, then shove some shoe racks. Good tip. So, building houses and making things look cluttered, Move Objects is a very handy tool. The only problem with it is if you try and do stuff on top of furniture, you kind of have to move it aside. So if you want to clutter up a table, you'll have to put the object on the table, move the object back to where you want it to go, and then put the table back underneath. So it's a bit convoluted, a bit confusing, but at the end it does result in the way you want to put the furniture down. It doesn't limit you. So there's tips for those who don't know about the Move Objects tricks, and how to kind of squash several things into one area. This is another area that Move Objects is more than heavily used. I've discovered recently my love of putting bookshelves between cabinets. It just kind of looks clean and tidy, as if it's a built-in piece of furniture. It's not just one of the bog standard shelves. If you can make it look a bit more interesting, then go for it, is what I'll say. These things are easy enough to disguise if you know how to do it. And there are a couple of ways of doing it, like using bookshelves and cabinets, tables, sizing things up, sizing things down. I've recently discovered that I can make a bench out of one of the ottomans or poofs as they're called, and some cabinets, and it's functional, so your Sims can sit on it. And my mind was blown the instant I found that out. So there are several combinations of furniture that you can make. You just have to know where to clip things through each other and where to pull back and think, does it actually look functional? Would it exist in a house? Because you can go all out and do all sorts of things with Move Objects, but if it doesn't look real, what's the point? Is a consistent idea to go by. But we've nearly finished the downstairs. I personally don't have the laundry day stuff, but you could use the area with the fridge at the back of the kitchen, stack some of the laundry day stuff, the washer and the dryer in there, and then you've got a fully functional unit. You could put a washing line in what will be the back garden eventually. So it's a completely functional house for those who have more packs than I do. And feel free, if you download the house, to just tear out all the furniture and put your own things in, because I'm fully aware that the base game stuff can be quite boring. It gets very repetitive after you've built the same thing several hundred times, so I understand the pain. And I'd have no gripe with anyone changing anything that exists within this house, or any of the things I build. Speaking of, this is on the gallery, or it should be on the gallery. I'll have to check that before this goes up. But it will be on the gallery if it isn't already. It's not been completely play tested, but there's no reason that your Sims shouldn't be able to use every element of this. I've built houses before with most of these things, and they do work, so there's no stress for those who think, oh no, it's not been play tested, will my Sim be able to sit on the toilet because of a towel? So that's something to look forward to if you want to use this. With this house, or this bedroom specifically, the colour schemes aren't the best, but I was working with limited resources, so do forgive me that this one doesn't look the nicest, but it's coherent enough. But again, it's one of those things, if you use this, you can take everything out, change the furniture and use it for whatever you want. So it's not entirely the end of the world. I'm not the best at furnishing. I am alright at building houses, but furnishing is not my strong point. So please forgive me. Anyway, I was thinking whilst doing this, I'm not the strongest at talking about what's going on, so if anyone has any tips or tricks or any ideas of what they want to know about any of the buildings or any of the videos, please leave them in the comments, because this is new. I'm not entirely sure how people can sit here and talk to themselves without rambling, so any tips or tricks would be brilliant. especially because I don't know how to change it. But I'm glad people seem to be enjoying the voiceovers. I've only done, well, this is the second proper one, but if I knew how to be eloquent, it would be a lot easier, I think, to talk about what's going on. I'm not the best at narrating what's in front of me, but it's something I'm willing to improve upon. If anyone's got any suggestions of anyone to watch on how to do something like this with coherent thoughts and how to put them into a video, then that's great too. Please go ahead and help. But I'm going to leave it here. The last thing to do on the video is, or on the build, is to finish the garden. Please comment down below how you think this went, and whether or not you have any tips or tricks on any of the elements I've put into the build. Please subscribe if you like the content, regardless of the voice or not, or whether you just like seeing these kind of things being built. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will let you watch the rest. Thank you guys.